Furthermore, coercion can never ultimately be a means for making men good or virtuous. Force can control men's behavior. It can prohibit them from doing certain things and command them to do others, under the threat and the use of various psychological and physical punishments. But this does not make these actions moral or virtuous. An act is moral or virtuous only by virtue of being the free choice of a human being who, in principle, could have done the opposite. Morality and virtue are in the minds and the hearts of men, not in the control of their external conduct. Imposed conformity is not morality. It is the denial of morality. By narrowing or abrogating the field in which a man and his actions may make up his own mind as to what is the right thing to do, the state removes the necessity to more conscientiously think and decide about what he should do as a self-responsible human being. By denying him the freedom to choose in various corners of his life, the state frees the individual from being more responsible fully for his actions. When men are freed from responsibility from their actions, the conditions are created for the growth of a climate of amorality. It's not my responsibility, I paid my taxes. I'm not accountable, I just obeyed orders. In the free society, the only appropriate means for trying to change other people's conduct is through reason, persuasion, and example. The coerced man often harbors resentment and anger in his heart, both against the coercer and himself, because he did not have the courage to resist being made to do what he did not want. The free man, when he changes the things he does, due to the persuasion or example of others, feels gratitude and joy for having been shown a better purpose in life or how to more successfully pursue his ends. When other men freely choose to change their behavior due to our arguments or example, it is more likely, therefore, to represent an actual change of heart and mind. And that is how the world is ultimately changed. One person, one mind, one heart at a time, for good or evil. Now, men and governments in other countries have done and continue to do many evil things. They have killed, brutalized, tortured, and destroyed. In the 20th century, it was done on a scale that goes beyond our mind's ability to fully comprehend. They have shocked our conscience and made us doubt the existence of any humanity in the human being. In a world of such conduct by others in other lands, it has been natural that many in America have wanted to do something, to come to the aid of those victimized by evil and to stop evil from doing it anymore. But similar to the pattern too often at home, people disturbed by the immoral acts of others abroad have turned to the state to right the wrongs occurring in foreign lands. They have wanted their government to intervene in the affairs of people in other countries, to oppose bad governments and evil men, and in their place foster good government and support better men. Rarely has this been successful in achieving the end desired. And even when the result in the short run has seemed better than what had been there before, the intervention often has had longer run consequences, usually unintended consequences, that have made new outcomes often similar to the ones the intervention was meant to cure. But even when people oppressed by a tyrant have been liberated from their torment, the people freed frequently turn against their liberators. It begins to play on their pride that they were not able to free themselves. Also, the liberating government is often not satisfied with merely eliminating the evil government to justify the sacrifice by its own people in lives and money, to free those who have been living under foreign oppression. The liberating government wants to establish a new order of good government and honest politics in the foreign land. But alas, good government and honest politics often have different meanings for the people in that foreign country. Customs, traditions, and other societal practices call for political institutions and methods of authority frequently quite different from what the liberating government's advisors view as the good or the better. Irritated and angry at the appearance of being told by the liberators how to live their lives and run their affairs in their own country, the people in that foreign land soon start wishing that the meddling Yankee, or the limey Brit, or the French frog, or the Russian bear would just go home. And too often the emotional reaction of being dictated to by the foreign power, who only yesterday was hailed as the great liberator, plays into the hands of the demagogue and the would-be new tyrant to ride to power on the wave of anti-foreign sentiment. The military forces and civilian advisors of the liberating government soon find themselves the new targeted enemy of the very people whom they wanted to free from the evils and injustices of the past. At home, the interventionist government often finds itself, sooner or later, governing a house divided over the justification for the intervention and its consequences. Sometimes there is no consensus from the start that the foreign intervention is justified. People in the society, to the extent that they take interest in international events, take different sides concerning who is in the right and who has been wronged in that foreign country, who is the oppressor and who needs to be freed. If the foreign intervention is undertaken, then from the start, there will be many in the country who oppose and resent their wealth being taxed and the lives of their loved ones in the military being put into harm's way to fight for the wrong side as they see it. If the foreign intervention has broad support among many in the society, then dissent, it's true, is maybe muted at first. But if the intervention is not short and clearly successful, then second thoughts begin to emerge among a growing number of people. Was the intervention the right thing to do from the start? Are we becoming the enemy of the very people we wished to befriend? Are we making the situation in that country worse than it was before? Is it worth the sacrifice in men and money, ours and theirs, to continue the intervention? Even if the foreign intervention seems to have been successful, with the goals appearing to have been achieved quickly with minimal sacrifice in lives and money, and with our boys already on the way home, the intervening government often leaves behind a situation in that foreign country that soon becomes not much different from what actually had existed before. Why? Because merely overthrowing the existing political order and imposing a new political order does not change the ideas, beliefs, customs, and traditions of the people in that nation. Such impositions may temporarily affect the external behavior of those people, but it does not transform what guides their sense of right and wrong, good and bad, just and unjust. These are matters of their hearts and minds, and these cannot be coerced into change. The only alternative is for the intervening government to stay on in that foreign country as a permanent coercing meddler, and that usually only leads to more problems, not solutions. Then, what is to be done in the face of evil in other lands? Well, let me suggest that first we need to remind our fellow citizens that there was a time when at least a part of mankind was on a path leading to both peace and prosperity. That 100-year epoch from the fall of Napoleon in 1815 to the coming of the First World War in 1914. The distinguishing characteristic of 19th century Europe and North America was that, however inconsistently and imperfectly it may have been practiced, that 100-year period between 1815 and 1914 was rightly said to have been the product of the classical liberal spirit. The guiding principle that directed much of public policy in practically all the countries of what used to be called at that time the civilized world was the depoliticizing of social life. With the triumph of free trade over mercantilism in the early and middle decades of the 19th century, and with the elimination of many of the domestic regulations, monopoly privileges, and restraints on enterprise, the state was drastically removed from the affairs of everyday life. In its place rose civil society, the blossoming of the private sector, and an extension of a network of intermediary institutions, of voluntary association and market relationships.